up with y'all?
All right, and shalom, shalom, shalom. This is Evangelist James, and I'm with the King James Bible University, coming out of Durham, North Carolina. And tonight's teaching that I'll be bringing forth is entitled The Deceitful Heart, a False Balance, and Diverse Weights. So before we get into the teaching, we want to make this public service announcement, as we always do, that we here at the King James Bible University and the House of the Lost Sheep of Israel, we are not affiliated with any Christian group, any Christian denomination, or any Christian organization, nor are we affiliated with any Black Hebrew street camp group, or any camp group, or any camp organization. We at King James Bible University in the House of the Lost Sheep of Israel and the House of JEHOVAH, we stand alone. We do not affiliate with any other outside organization or any outside influences outside of King James Bible University and the House of the Lost Sheep of Israel. So we always just want to make that known. But now we're going to get into this teaching. This deceitful heart, these false balances and diverse weights. So, this teaching here is actually stemming from some statements that I made in the last teaching that I did on the heart is deceitful above all things. So now we focusing now on these false balances, these diverse weights, and these unjust weights. So that's what these false balances are. So false balance and diverse weights, see, these are unjust weights. See, this is something that may appear on the surface to be one thing. See, it may appear to be just and right. It may appear to be balanced, but behind the scenes, it's really another thing. So when we have a false balance and diverse weights, this actually is showing hypocrisy, because when we doing things like this, it's actually showing that we making everything about self. We making everything about ourselves, whatever we see that is right in our own eyes. That it'll be things that we say is just. We'll say things and do things that we believe is just, but then it's really not. It's just as if, just like when you can be speaking against something and we think that that's a just weight based on something that we doing, believing that we doing something righteous, but a lot of times it's unbalanced and it's false because one, we be doing it for all the wrong reasons, and two, we not even holding to the same standard of the thing that we were speaking on ourselves. See, when we putting a weight on something, it's just like you sitting there holding somebody to a standard and we call it just and we call it righteous. But then if we turn around and we not holding to the same standard that we putting on somebody else, then that creates a false balance. So these diverse weights and false balances will always be where you hold something, where you hold something or even somebody to something that you yourself won't even hold to. So if I place a standard there and I'm holding somebody else to it, I have to be holding myself to that same standard of judgment. So my weight must always be balanced at all times, because if not, it's going to be false. And that is an abomination in the eyes of Yhovah, which this is a very serious matter that we actually looking at and that we getting into. So this is something that's going to be most likely breaking up into another part, but we got to look at this and understand what's actually going on with this. So with that, we ain't going to waste too much time and we're going to get right into the scriptures. So we're going to start right here in the law in Deuteronomy chapter 25. We're going to start at verse 13 and we're going to take it down to verse 16. And it says, Deuteronomy chapter 25, starting at verse 13 down to verse 16. And it says, thou shalt not have in thy bag divers weights, a great and a small. Thou shalt not have in thy house, so in thy temple, in thy body, divers measures, a great and a small. But, verse 14, but thou shalt have a perfect and just weight. A perfect and just measure shalt thou have, that thy days may be lengthened in the land which the Lord thy God, so the Spirit of God thy God, giveth thee. So we can see that this statute right here, which is outlined right here in the law, this right here establishes the standard that thou shalt not have in thy bag diverse weights. So we can't have these diverse ways. We can't have these various stones or these beliefs within us. But thou shalt have a perfect and just weight. See, this is the standard that Yhovah established before he actually pronounced the consequences of its violation, which we see here in verse 16. And it says, for all that do such things and all that do unrighteously are an abomination unto the Lord our God. So we can see this there. So having unjust weights are an abomination to the Spirit of God. And we're going to see in this teaching the actual weight of this matter and why it's so serious. So let's go over here to Proverbs chapter 11, verse 1. And it says, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, to the Spirit of God, but a just weight is his delight. So we need to understand why this is. We need to understand why this false balance is held to such a weight of an abomination in the eyes of Yhovah. We have to ask ourselves that. Why does this violation hold to such a great weight? But before we can understand this false balance, before we can understand this unjust weight or what this false balance really is, see, we have to break it down to the point where there's no way of getting around it. That's what we have to do. And we have to see it for what it actually is. Because if not, if we don't see it for what it is, then what we'll do, we'll sit there and try to dress things up to be something that it's not, because that's what flesh do. That's what people do. We always try to cover up our own iniquity to make it look like something that it's not, because this is what we as a people do. We good at doing this. We do this all the time. But even that within itself is a false balance, because it's hypocrisy. See, I want to even show us something based on what I'm saying, even as a side note, because I want to show us that this is something that we actually do. We've been doing it since the beginning. So I want to show us this in Genesis chapter 3. In Genesis chapter 3 and verse 7, because he tells us something here. In Genesis chapter 3 and verse 7, it says, and the eyes, so the understandings of them both were open. So they was revealed. It was made known. And they knew that they was naked. So they knew that it was in sin. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. So we can clearly see what's going on here. See, this was our first attempt to try and hide our spiritual condition of what we really are. So we can appear reasonable and acceptable in the presence of others. Trying to sit there and appear abundant and prosperous with these fig leaves, but there's no fruit on it. But that's the deceit, because underneath all of that is really something else. And that within itself is a false balance. By trying to have an appearance of righteousness that looks good on the surface, see, that's the great weight that you want everybody to see. But when you examine it for what it is, we sit there and hide who we really are, being actually full of sin and being full of iniquity. That's the small measure that we don't want nobody to see. That's the great and small weights. See, these are diverse weights in the same bag. See, we're going to sit there and appear righteously, openly for everybody to see. But then at the same time, we'll secretly hide our shame and our sin that we don't want uncovered and that what we don't want exposed. This is what we do. But you can see our understanding. As it said, the understanding of them both was open. So our understanding was open, meaning our spiritual condition, this nakedness, this sin, this shame and this confusion was made known unto us. It was revealed unto us because we knew our spiritual condition. We knew we was in sin, but we still attempted to hide it. Instead of seeking to correct it, we sought to hide it. But the point is, we do this very same exact thing to this day. This is what flesh do. Many of us, our sinfulness, our iniquities, our unrighteousness is made known to us, but we try to hide it and make it look like that is something else that is not. And we try to soften it and water it down to be something that is not, instead of seeing it for what it is. See, this is why we got to strip it down and understand it for what it is, because we as a people, we've held to this same exact mindset to this very day. This is what our issue is. But he even tell us in Genesis chapter 3 and verse 22, in the same chapter, he tell us something in Genesis chapter 3, verse 22. And it said, and the Lord God said, behold, remember, the man is become as one of us to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and learn and live forever. But I want to show us something about this tree of life, because we're going to see how it ties into the same thing that we actually speaking about. Because when we go over here, we're going to see it tell us the tree of life. We see it's this perfect weight and measures. So this is what we're seeing right here. This is what this tree of life is. This tree of life. This is the perfect weight and measures that we have to learn of so we can live forever, meaning so we can receive eternal life. But this is the same thing that we was told in Deuteronomy. It was just hidden in a parable over here in Genesis, but he tell us the same thing the entire time, just in different ways. Because when we go back to Deuteronomy chapter 25, in Deuteronomy chapter 25, and we look right back here at verse 15, he telling us the same thing. It said, but thou shalt have a perfect and just weight, a perfect and just measure. That's the tree of life that we have to learn of, that thy days may be lengthened in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. So we have to learn of this way so that we can live forever, meaning receive eternal life. But again, we got to look at the issue that is present, because I'm not going to let us get away from this. We have to see what the issue is, because a lot of times what we like to do, we like to look at all the good things and talk about all the good stuff, but we don't want to look into what our issues are. See, as long as we have these diverse weights, we always going to have an issue. We'll always sit there and violate JEHOVAH's standards. That's what got us kicked out the garden in the first place. And that's exactly why we in the position that we in today. So, to understand this unjust weight, we have to understand the spiritual root of it. So we have to look at a weight, just a weight in itself. We have to look at a weight in itself and understand what a weight is. So a weight is going to tie you to a measure. So this weight, it functions as a standard of measurement. That's how we want to see it. It's as a standard of measurement. So that's what we want to write down. That's what we want to hold to. That the weight, this is a standard of measurement. But this weight, you can see it as a stone, in which this stone is a fixed object. This stone, it don't shift, it doesn't move, and its value is established. So it doesn't negotiate with the hand that actually holds it. Meaning, it ain't finna change for you. It ain't gonna change what it is for you. You can't force it to alter. You ain't finna change what it is. Why? Because a stone is a stone. So Yhovah, he appointed a weight as the standard of measurement, because this stone, you can't sit there and argue with a stone and you can't dispute with it. Because why? Because it is what it is. So it's not going to change what it is. A stone is a stone. So when we look back at Deuteronomy 25:15, that's why you see why this standard is established. But thou shalt have a perfect and just weight. So this isn't something that changes, nor is it something that alters. This perfect and just weight is perfectly balanced. It's governed by a fixed, unmoving standard. This is the same exact standard by which Yhovah measures every soul before his throne. Because we all going to be measured based on the standard according to his judgment. We all going to be measured based on that same standard. But based on that, I want to actually show us something based on the statement that I just made, so we not confused. I want to actually show us this, because he tell us this when we go over here to 2 Corinthians. He actually tells us right here. Let's look at this in 2 Corinthians. In 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 10, he actually tells us in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 10, he said, For we must all appear before, so in the presence of the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body. Now remember, he told us. He told us right here, back over here in Deuteronomy 25:14, he said, Thou shalt not have in thy house, thou shalt not have in thy temple, in thy body, divers measures, great and small. He already told us this, but he tells us here in 2 Corinthians, he said, For we all must appear in the presence of the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things that is done in his body according to that he have done, whether it be good or bad. So this is the point. This judgment seat, this is his throne. This is Yhovah's throne. That's why I said Yhovah himself measures every soul before his throne or his judgment seat. See, this is the doctrine and teaching decision based on what we held to according to Yhovah's standard in his law. Because something that we have to keep in mind is this weight. Like I said, this standard of measurement. We have to keep this weight in mind, or this stone. See, even on the physical, when you're looking at a stone, see, I want us to visualize this stone. So when you're looking at a stone, see, this stone is unmovable. It doesn't change. It doesn't alter because it's solid. But the point is, that same similitude you can see, that's exactly how Yhovah is. Because you can see this when we go over here to Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 4. He tells us something. In Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 4, it says, He is the rock. Who? The Spirit of God. Who? Yhovah. His work is perfect, for all his ways are judgments. All his ways are doctrines and teaching. A God of truth and without iniquity, just and right is he. So all of Yhovah's ways, his judgments, his doctrines and teachings are perfect and just. There's no iniquity in it. There's no unrighteousness in it. So Yhovah holds us to this same standard. Why? He tells us in Leviticus chapter 11. Tell us right here. In Leviticus chapter 11, and we're going to hit verse 45. He tells us something. Leviticus chapter 11, verse 45, he says, For I am the Lord, the Spirit of God that bringeth you up out of the land of Egypt, to be your God, to be your guide. Ye shall therefore, for that reason, be holy, be separated. For I am holy, for I am separated. So we have to be set apart, just as he, separated and sanctified, just as he is separated. Why? Because he established this principle for us from the beginning, that God made man in his own image. We can see this when we go over here to Genesis chapter 1. In Genesis chapter 1 and verse 27, he tells us right here, it says, So God created man. Male and female in his own image. The image of God created he, him. Male and female created he, them. So we are to be in Jehovah's representation and in his likeness, reflecting his character and his ways. So we are instructed back over here. We are instructed to have, thou shalt have a perfect and just weight. This is what we are instructed. See, this is the standard that is placed before us because Yhovah is perfect and just. Just and right is he. He is holy. So we are to be holy because we was made in his image. So this is the standard that is established. So again, when you're looking at this weight or this standard of measurement, this weight does not shift because it's as a rock. It's solid. It's unmovable. You cannot change a stone from what it is. Deuteronomy 25:15, but thou shalt have a perfect and just weight. So when Yhovah presented this law before us, he's not negotiating with us something that we can argue with and dispute with. No, but he's establishing that every transaction made must be governed by this fixed standard that his people are to be governed by. He's going to measure us by this same standard. That's what it is. Because just as a stone is unmovable, Jehovah's law is unchanging. See, this is why these same foundational precepts will always apply, which we're going to see right here. Let's go to Psalms chapter 89 and verse 34. He tells us in Psalms chapter 89 and verse 34, he tells us something here. It says, my covenant, my agreement will I not break nor alter the things that is going out of my lips. He ain't changing nothing. He ain't breaking nothing. The same thing that we see in, let's go to Malachi. Let's look at that one. Where's it at? Malachi chapter 3. Let's go over here. Malachi chapter 3 and verse 6. All we need is up to the semicolon. Malachi chapter 3 verse 6b. And it says, for I am the Lord, I am the Spirit of God. I change not. But that's A and B. For I am the Lord, I change not. So we see that. Yhovah, he ain't changing nothing. He ain't altering anything. Just as that stone is unmovable. It doesn't alter. It doesn't change. That's why he used it as that standard of measurement so we can understand that's exactly how his law, it don't change. It don't alter. You can't move it. Same thing is, we're going to pull this one to go with it. Hebrews chapter 13. Let's look at this. Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 8. He tells us here, we see the same thing in the New Testament. Jesus Christ, which we know spiritually telling us, salvation of Yhovah is the same yesterday and today and forever. So we see this specific foundation cannot be broken. Jehovah's standard does not change. It don't matter where you go in the scripture. His word does not change. It does not bend. It does not alter. It does not break. It's just like a stone. Again, Yhovah used this stone as the weight, this standard of measurement, because when you looking at a stone, you can even sit there and go outside and grab a stone. Anybody can do this. You can go outside, go get you a stone and bring that stone back in the house. So if you go outside, you get a stone, you bring that stone back in the house, you can sit there, you can set that stone on the table and you can watch it. Just watch it. Just observe it. Now I want you to see if that stone gonna move. See if that stone is gonna change, because it ain't going nowhere unless you move it. If you put that rock in that one spot on that table, it ain't going nowhere. Shoot, you can sit there and leave it there for days. You can leave it in that same spot for months. You can leave it there for years. Guess what? That same stone gonna be in that same exact spot. It's gonna be there longer than you gonna be there, because it's gonna endure. But then see if it alters itself. Even if you put it in your hand, see if you can force it to bend to your will. See if you can do that. Try to crush it. Try to squeeze it. See if you can force it to break with your hands, with your own powers. I guarantee you. Try it. See what happens. That rock gonna make a fool out of us. That's what it's gonna do. But that's the point, because it's solid. You can't break it. You can't bend it. You can't force it to your own will, nor can you alter it and change it. Why? because it's going to stay the same today, just as it was the same yesterday, and it's going to be the same forever. That's the point. You can't change the standard that Jehovah has set. You can't change his law. That's the point that I want to get us to understand. But I want to see, do everybody understand what I'm saying so far? You just put eyes in the chat if you understand. I just want to see, did everybody understand exactly what I'm saying so far? I just want to check and see. Did everybody understand what's being said? Okay, so it looked like majority, we understand what's being said. Okay, so we good. All right, so that's the thing. Jehovah, the standard that Jehovah has set, that he established in his law, you can't change that. It's not gonna alter. It's not going. You can't do anything to change it. But the issue is, well, the question is this, which we have to all ask ourselves. If you can't alter, you can't change the standard. What happens if the standard moves? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. If you can't alter it, you can't change it, you can't break it, you can't bend it. But what happens if the standard moves? Meaning, what happens if you remove it? It's just like the rock. You can have a rock and you can sit there and take the rock and you can just move it if you want to get rid of it. You can't break it, you can't alter it, but you can show remove it. So what happens if you remove that standard? Or if it's switched out and it's replaced with something else? What happens if that stone, which is that just weight, is replaced with something else? What happens if it's replaced with clay? See, clay is something that's soft and weak, that can be molded and reshaped into whatever you want to make it into. Is that still a just weight? Or is that now an unjust weight? See, just as Jehovah's law cannot be changed, nor can it be altered, because it's a set of commandments and statutes that are set in place. That's the standard. But if you try to alter and try to shape it to fit your own desires, then what is that? Is that not unjust? See, when we do things like this, this just isn't a simple error, but this is a spiritual transgression against Jehovah's standards. Because now you've exchanged or replaced your own measure or your own standard for the measure of Yhovah, the standard that he set in place. We don't change that out. We don't remove that. We don't got rid of that, and we don't put our own standard there for what we want there. See, this is what happens. See, this is the root of the unjust weight. See, this is where these diverse weights and these false balances start coming in. When we sit there and we start placing our own standard in the position that belongs to Jehovah's law alone. But this is what we do. This is exactly what we do. So the same thing is, we can even look at a job, for example. I'm gonna use a job, for example. We're looking at an employee and employer. See, the employee gets hired for a job. So when an employee, when he gets hired for a job, he exchanges his time, his skills, and his labor at his job to get paid and receive the full compensation that was agreed upon from the employer. So the job standard is outlined in the contract, which is that the employee works 40 hours a week, 4 days out the week, and 10 hours in the day, because that's going to add up to 40 hours. So let's say the employee clock in time is 6 a.m. and his clock out time is 4 p.m. because that's going to make those 10 hours. See, this is on a daily basis. See, this is the standard that the employer has set at the company for their employees, which is documented, which was agreed upon in the contract, which was presented by the employer and signed by each employee. So even at my job, we have this thing where we have the ability to actually clock in through an app from our phones. So we don't actually need to be physically at the job to clock in on the device on site. We don't have to do that. but we can clock in from our phones. So let's say that one employee decides to clock in to work from his home at 6 a.m. But then he doesn't actually show up to work till 8 a.m. Though he still goes in and may complete majority of his tasks, however, he still removes the standard deceitfully by falsifying his time of his actual labor. Though clocking in on time, he shows up to work late every day, but still seeks to get paid the full compensation, but neglected the time and the labor that was agreed upon in the contract. But he still wants his full compensation, believing just because he still got his work done that he's still justified. But he deceitfully manipulated the standard that was set and replaced it with his own standard to get paid his full time without putting in the actual labor for it. See, many people do this. Many of us do this. Like I said, at my job, that's what I'm saying, because this is from an experience. I've seen good workers, even at my job, get fired behind this same exact thing. But that very act, that is an unjust weight. That's a false balance, because you sitting there, you removing the standard that was set, and you sitting there and you replacing it with your own. Just like it ain't no different. Just like when people go to their jobs and they clock in just to sit around and do nothing. Everybody seen that? Y'all seen that? You go to work, you sit there, you clock into work, and then you clock into work, and then you go somewhere else, sitting on the clock, and you don't do nothing. I'm sure many of us seen that. See, when you go to work, you get paid to go to work. You don't get paid to be on the clock to just sit around and do nothing. But you have people, as soon as they clock in, they get missing. As soon as they clock in, they get missing. They go outside. they go hiding in the bathroom, sitting on their phones in the stalls so nobody know where they at. Trying to find any type of way to get out of work. But then you still want to clock out on time. You still want to receive your full compensation. You serious? But then when you get caught, now, as soon as you get caught, now who the one with the problem now? Oh, now we got the problem. When you don't get your full paycheck, when the manager catches you falsifying your hours that you claim to put in. Now we the ones that got the issue. So when you get fired from your job, now we the ones, first thing we gonna do, now we want to argue. Now we want to complain. Now we want to raise hell. Now we saying we won't being treated fairly. You won't treating me fairly. Now we trying to dispute and justify ourselves with the manager, instead of turning around and pointing that finger right back at ourselves and our own wickedness. When we're the ones who broke the standard, we did that and put in our own. We're the ones who didn't hold to what was outlined in the contract that we signed. But then we're going to sit there and got the nerve to still demand our full recompense, but neglected the labor. This is what we do. 100% hypocrites. But guess what? That is having diverse weights. That's why he say, same thing is, we look back over here. He tell us in Deuteronomy chapter 25 and verse 13, it says, thou shall not have in thy bag diverse weights, a great and a small. You can't have this. You can't have these in here. But I want to tie something to it, which I want to show us ahead of time. I want to show us this over here in Amos chapter 8. Amos chapter 8, and we only need, what is this? A, B, C. What is this? Amos chapter 8. We're going to start right here at 8F. We're going to start at Amos chapter 8, verse 5, starting at F. And we're going to see this right here. And it says, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit. This is what we do. We make the ephah small, so that ephah is that measure. We're going to make the ephah small, but the shekel going to be great. But that's falsifying. But guess what? See, the ephah is this measure. The ephah is what you're going to give, what you're going to put in. But that shekel is what you're going to receive. See, this is the man who demands the full payment of his work, but at the same time, he giving partial service to his labor. He demands to receive the full wages and the full recompense of his pay because he's making the shekel great. But at the same time, he diminishes his service by falsifying his labor, the work that he actually put in, his time, his effort, his service to the company. He making the ephah small. So he's not putting in what he demands to receive because he got diverse weights. So he's measuring his demand by one stone, which is this great weight, this great one, what he believes he deserves to receive, which is his full payment, but then his delivery, which is the small, that small portion of work that he actually putting in. That's the other stone. That's the small one. That's his little partial service to the company and the little labor that he putting in while still simultaneously demanding gain while doing little work to rightly receive it. See, these are diverse weights. These are diverse measures. See, this is falsifying the balances. So, according to Jehovah's law, see this, as we see right here in verse 16. And Deuteronomy 25 and verse 16, it says, for all that do such things and all that do unrighteously are an abomination unto the Lord our God, unto the Spirit of God thy God. So, according to Jehovah's law, see, this not only just identifies this man as just being dishonest and being deceitful. It's not just that, but this identifies this man as an abomination. That's what he is. So that's why I say we got to see it for what it is. We got to say, well, he's just being dishonest. No, he's being an abomination. That's what he is. But guess what? The thing is, the same thing that people do at these jobs, the same thing is, we'll do the same thing with God. But we think we don't. Because he has a standard that is laid out for us in this law. We see it here, which is this law. This is our contract. In this book, everything that is documented for us that we agreed upon, it does not change. It's irrevocable. It does not alter. It does not change for us because we cannot alter and change what God said. So this ain't like no little business transaction that you're trying to make where you think you're going to negotiate something to fit what you want. Nah, this ain't it. It ain't like that. See, Yhovah, he ain't going to negotiate with us. He don't argue with us. He ain't going to change his standard to meet ours. But what we'll do, we'll move it. We'll remove his. We'll remove his standards, and we're going to put our own there to fit our own lifestyle, to satisfy what's convenient for us and do what seemeth right in our own eyes. See, this is what we do. This is what we do. This is what we get into. Same thing is we go over here to Proverbs. Let's look at something. He tells us something when we go ahead to Proverbs. We go to Proverbs chapter 16. In Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 25, he tells us something. It says, there is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Exactly the point. Why? Because it's always going to lead to death. It's always going to lead to a separation from Yhovah. The ways that seemeth right to us in our own eyes. That's why I said from the beginning. See, when we're dealing with these diverse weights and these unjust weights, it's always going to be talking about self. It's going to be dealing with, it's going to, because we're going to do something that going to seem right in our own eyes, in our own understandings. We going to think we doing something just, but it's actually deceit. See, this is when the standard is broken. That's why I said from the beginning of this teaching, see, a lot of things that we might feel, we might think that we doing right, we'll call it just. But if we don't check ourselves and examine ourselves and see if the things that we actually doing actually aligns with Jehovah's standard that he set and not what we set for ourselves, then that's where we're going to have the issue. Same thing is, see, this is exactly why we think we can continue to be lazy, when we think we can procrastinate to get things done. But the issue is, when it comes to laboring in this field, guess what? We always on the clock. It ain't no clock out time. See, that's why I said we had a problem. In Jehovah's law, with us that we've agreed upon, we ain't got no clock out time. That's the issue. See, we could sit there and say, well, I'm going to go hard in my labors. I'm going to go hard in my studies. We can sit there and say, well, I'm going to go hard 4 days out the week. I'm going to work 4 days out the week. But then I decide I'm going to slack off for 3 days. But then I say, well, I put in work for majority of the week. I should be able to have these couple of days off to myself to do what I want to do. See, that's a standard that I put there. That ain't Jehovah's standard. I put that there. I remove his standard and I'm going to put my own there to satisfy my needs. See, this shows a lack of consistency in our diligence and our devotion across the board. But remember, Jehovah, he's going to measure us by his standard that he set, not by ours that we set. That's why he uses the stone, because it's a perfect and just weight. That's the standard. See, Jehovah here that we see in Deuteronomy, Jehovah, he didn't leave us to just this one citation in scripture found here in Deuteronomy. We can see the same thing over here when we go over here to Leviticus. He tells us in Leviticus chapter 19, let's see something. In Leviticus chapter 19, we're going to go to Leviticus chapter 19, and we're going to hit verse 35, but we're going to take it down to 37. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 35 down to verse 37, it says, ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment and doctrines and teachings, in met yard, in weight, or in measure. Just balances, just weights, a just ephah. Yeah, we got to come back to it. And a just hin shall ye have. I am the Lord your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt, of the house of bondage. See, this ephah right here is this measure. But I also want to show us, according to the spiritual dictionary, we can even see that an ephah, you see, an ephah is going to tie you to a measure. It's going to tie you to a homer. That's what I want to show us. It's a homer. That's what we're gonna be looking at. And he tell us. So we gotta have this just ephah, this just measure, this just homer. And a just hin shall ye have. I am the Lord your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt. Verse 37, therefore, for that reason, shall ye observe all my statutes and all my judgments, my doctrines and teachings, and do them. I am the Spirit of God. So we can see what he's saying. See, Jehovah, he ties the commandment of the just weights directly to his own identity. That's why he said, I am the Spirit of God, your God. See, this is the very covenant agreement that he establishes with his people. And the reason I keep saying his people and not just us, because everybody here ain't his people, because all Israel ain't Israel. It's always going to be a mixed multitude. So he established this commandment and this covenant with his people that he brought out of Egypt, meaning the house of bondage. See, when we even looking at that, see, this is not just a mere physical place. See, just as a side note, for anybody who could be listening, who might be new, who might be here, see, a lot of people, see, when we look into scripture and we see places in scripture and we look at Egypt, we look at Jerusalem, we look at Babylon and things like that, we like to sit there and look at them as geographical locations and hold them to that. Looking at these physical places, but it's not that. We have to understand that this book is a spiritual book. So these locations should not be looked at as mere geographical locations and physical places. But this is when what we should be looking at this is when we go into these different locations, you going from one state to another. This like going from one state of mind that we dwelling in to another. But this is also why the spiritual dictionary is also so important, because it even tells you even when you look at Egypt, because it tells you exactly what it is. Egypt is the house of bondage, not merely a physical place. Because none of us here is bound hand and foot with chains around our feet and chains around our arms and chains around our neck. But all of us have been in bondage in our own mind. So being in bondage to your own ways and your own mindset. See, this is even validated according to the scripture, which we see in Exodus chapter 20. In Exodus chapter 20 and verse 2, he tells us right here, Exodus chapter 20 verse 2, he says, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So this here validates the spiritual word function that we actually see in the spiritual dictionary. See, this is where it comes from. So again, for anybody who's new here or who might be watching for the first time, when you see all the teachers here at King James Bible University in the House of the Lost Sheep of Israel, when we sit there and use the spiritual dictionary and giving you the spiritual word function, see, these are not made up words or made up terms that man came up with, such as when people use these strong concordances and these Bible dictionaries and these Google definitions. This ain't that. This spiritual dictionary, the words that are contained within it are the spiritual word functions that are pulled directly from the understanding of the scripture itself. That is exactly why I wanted to show us that, to make that clarification that we can clearly see. See, this spiritual function in Egypt comes directly from the scripture that we can clearly see right here. But then you have people out here who want to call it everything else than what it actually is. It's just the house of bondage. And we know a house is a body, a temple. It's telling you, he was in the house of bondage, caught up in our own flesh. He even tell us again, validate this even more. He even tell us again when we go over here, the Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 68, he tell us, it says, and the Lord, the Spirit of God, shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt not see it no more again. And there shall ye be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So the children of Israel ain't go back into physical Egypt. So we know we know that lets you know it's talking about something else. So he just telling you, you finna go back into bondage again. And this can be anywhere, not just America. This is anywhere, any wind of doctrine and philosophy that we get carried away to. You know how many times we've been in bondage? See, this entire world, all over this world, this entire world system keeps you in bondage to this flesh, to be carnally minded. It's over 47,000 Christian denominations that's in the world. All these beliefs and philosophies that's out here to get us caught up in this confusion, to keep our minds locked away from the truth, keep you in bondage to carnal fleshly understandings. It's everywhere. Everywhere you go, everywhere you look, it's all around us. That's why can't no man buy you. Ain't no man finna get you out of this. That's why I say can't no man buy you. Can't no man get you out of this. Can't no man save you and deliver you from this world system. That's the point. That's the point. But to get back to the topic of the lesson, I just wanted to show us that and point that out. But moving forward, when we get back, we can see this is why JEHOVAH, he said what he said. He said right here in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 36 and verse 37, just balances, just weights, and a just ephah. And a just hand shall ye have. I am the Lord your God, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. I brought you out of that crap, out of that confusion and that bondage of this flesh. For that reason, you shall observe all my statutes and all my doctrines and teachings and do them. I am the Lord. So JEHOVAH, he the one who brought us up out of bondage to follow his ways, to follow his standard that he set in his commandments and his statutes. That's why he said, ye shall observe all my statutes and all my judgments and do them. He didn't say some of them. He didn't say majority of them. He said all of them. He didn't say 85% of them, and then you leave off 15%. He didn't say you sit there and do 50-50, that you're going to do half and half. He ain't say that. I can guarantee you right now, if we knew, if anybody here, if any one of us knew what JEHOVAH's measuring stick was, how you got the 30-fold, 60-fold, and 100-fold? If we knew, if anybody here knew what that 30-fold was, majority of everybody right here, right now, would do just enough to meet that 30%. Say we won't. We'll do just enough to make sure we get into the kingdom. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that's exactly what we'll do. We'll do just enough. We're going to do just enough to meet the mark. Because that is how we is as a people. That's us. Well, we want to talk about we the people. Yeah, sure, hell, we sure is the people. We were rebellious people. We are stiff-necked people. But then the first thing we're going to do, but guess what? We're going to falsify the balance. Because the first thing we're going to do is turn around and say, nah, I won't do that. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do God that way. See, this is us as a people. That's how we are. This is what we do. But then we like to sit there and pretend we won't do it. And we know daggone well that's what we're going to do. But the thing is, if we're going to meet Jehovah's measure, if we're going to meet his standard, then we got to give it our all. That's why I kept focusing on the all. We got to give it our all. We got to give 100% of what we have. We put 100 in, we get 100 back. If we going to expect to receive that back, whatever we put in, that's what we going to get out. See, it ain't no negotiating. It ain't no negotiating the terms. You ain't negotiating nothing. See, we have to observe all his statutes and all his doctrines and teachings and do them. This is Jehovah's standard by which he measures every soul, by which he measures his people based on this. So to have an unjust weight, this ain't just a minor error, but this is a breach of our covenant identity and our contract by dishonoring the very one who is Jehovah, whose name, whose way and deliverance stands behind the very standard that he set for his people. We'll go against it. He say one thing, we turn around and do another. But we say, you know what? We're going to still do it our own way. I'm going to do what works for me. See, again, when it comes to time, when it comes to devotion and diligence in our labor for God. See, if I sit there and say, I'm going to put in my 100% and I do that 4 days out the week, and then the last 3 days of the week, I'll only put in 10%. Do I now believe that my 4 days of my so-called diligent labor is going to outweigh my lack of devotion for the rest of the week? Is that what I believe? Do I believe that that's sufficient with God? Because now it's unbalanced. Because I'm putting in two different measures at the same time. I'm gonna put in work for the first half of the week, but the back half of the week, I ain't doing nothing. Because now I'm only doing but so much and what I see fit. But I still desire the full reward for my labor. And I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. So do I believe that Jehovah is going to be satisfied with that? Because I see it as sufficient in my own eyes. See, this mindset, this is not satisfactory with Jehovah. Because even in his law, he tells us that we got to get our omer daily. That's why I kept highlighting that. Because he tells us we have to learn and we have to study to show ourselves approved. This is a daily thing. It ain't no time limit on it. We put the time limit on it. That's our standard. See, what people don't understand, when you sit there and you putting a time limit on something, well, I'm only going to put in this amount of work. Well, yeah, remember, that's what you saying. You put that there. He ain't put that there. But he tells us in Exodus chapter 16 and verse 4, he tells us something. In Exodus chapter 16 and verse 4, he says, then said the Spirit of God unto Moses, remember, I will rain bread. I'm going to rain this knowledge from heaven for you. This is why these daily teachings come out every day. It's always raining here. And the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk, they going to live in my law or no. Exactly what we've been saying. Because we have to remember, we on this journey. But the thing is, we in this proving ground. That's where we at. This world is our proving ground. We getting proved and tested on what we going to hold to. He going to prove us on rather we going to really hold to his law or we not. That's what we being measured by. Let's see something. Let's look at verse 16. Verse 16 down to verse 18. Tell us something. Exodus chapter 16, verse 16 down to verse 18. It says, this is the thing which the Lord, the Spirit of God, have commanded. gather it of every man, every male and female, according to his eating, according to his learning, an omer for every man. Again, this omer is going to tie you to this ephah. That's why we pulling this law. This is what we giving. This is what we getting. This is what we putting in. See, this is our labor. According to the number of your persons, take ye every man, every male and female for them, which are in his tents, within his dwelling places. And the children of Israel did so, and gathered some more and some less. And when they did meet it with an omer, he that gathered much had nothing over, and he that gathered little had no lack. And they gathered every man according to his eating, to his learning. So according to this statute, we have to gather our omer daily. This is the measure of our labor, of our learning, and of our devotion. You got some who going to gather more, who can take in more understanding. You got some who going to gather less. It's just like pouring a handful of grain into your hands, but you can only hold as much as your hands can carry. And you don't try to go above that, nor do you go under that. But the point is, we are required to gather our omer daily. So we got to have, just like that just ephah, we got to have a just omer, a just measure that we actually putting in. So even more so, let's say I devote my time to JEHOVAH 6 days out the week, but then I choose one day. I choose to devote that day to myself. And I devote little to any time to JEHOVAH that day. Now again, do I believe that my devotion is just and righteous, and that's a just weight before JEHOVAH because I devoted majority of my time that week to him, and then I believe that skipping one day in the week is sufficient? It's just one day. What can one day hurt? It's just one day. What that gonna matter? What that gonna do? It's just a day. See, that is reasoning within yourself. Now you removing the standard. And you're going to put your own there to fit your lifestyle, to satisfy your desire, thinking that one day won't hurt. Now we trying to negotiate the terms, which is non-negotiable. Sitting there saying, well, God going to understand. He know, the Lord know, he know I be putting in this work. It'd be cool. I can just take one day off. He good. He going to understand it. He cool with it. Again, JEHOVAH's standard is a just weight and a just balance, a just ephah. That's the measure, the omer that we give, our labor, our devotion, our time, and our diligence that we are required to put in daily, according to JEHOVAH's law. Guess what? That means every day. So where do we find that we can skip out? This is a daily thing that we got to do. Let's validate this. Let's go over here to Joshua. Let's look at something. In Joshua chapter 1. He tells us something over here. In Joshua chapter 1 and verse 8, we can see something. Joshua chapter 1 and verse 8, he tells us something. It says, this book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then, once you do this, for then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. But he said to meditate day and night. So where we get the days off at? Where we find that at? But do we think we deserve the reward to prosper and have good success without the actual labor being put in? See, we putting in a small ephah. But the shekel is great. We demand a righteous reward, but with little labor. But we think we sit there, we think we don't got an issue. Tell us again over here in Psalms chapter 1. In Psalms chapter 1 and verse 2, it says, but his delight is in the law of the Spirit of God, and in his law doeth he meditate day and night. So I ain't seen no days off yet. Y'all let me know when y'all find it. He telling us we got to be doing this thing. We got to be putting in this work day and night. That's what he telling us. See, Let's go over here. Matter of fact, let's go to the new. Maybe we gonna find it in the New Testament. Maybe the New Testament got it. Let's see. Let's go over here. Let's go over here to Acts. Let's go to Acts chapter 26. Let's go over here. In Acts chapter 26 and verse 7, he tells us something. It says, unto which promise are 12 tribes, instantly serving God day and night, hope to come. It's still saying the same thing. So we got to be putting in this work day and night. He ain't got no time. Shoot, I thought we gonna find a where he got the time limit for us, letting us know when we can take the day off. But it look like he ain't got no time limit for us. So again, the point is, the standard don't change. That's the whole point. I just wanted to show us. It's just as that stone. It's unchanging. It's unmovable. It's irrevocable. You can't negotiate it. You can't sit there and say, well, Lord, can I do it this way? No, you either hold to his way or no way. But then, like I said, these diverse weights come in is when we remove the standard and we put our own standard there saying, well, I'm going to do it this way to fit my desire. That's why I say we going to change it to satisfy our desires. And as soon as we do it, that's an unjust weight. So that one missed day, that one little missed day of gathering that omer and putting in that time, that throws off the entire balance. Now again, that's an unjust weight. That's still a false balance. Because being balanced and having consistent devotion throughout the entire week, that's what we should have. But we'll throw it off with one day of procrastination, one day of laziness, being slack, being slowful to please our flesh. Because now we don't put something else there to satisfy us. So the same thing is, we'll believe the little things like that don't matter. But as soon as we have it, then it can go from one day, and then the next time is 2 days. And the next thing you know is 3 days off. And before you know it, it's a week off. Now we completely ain't doing nothing at all. Slowly becoming more and more corrupted. See, I want to show us something here. Because all it takes is that one small influence to get us off. To influence the influence for our flesh to get us. He tells us in Galatians chapter 5 and verse 9, he tells us, it says, a little leaven. So a little influence, a little corruption, leaveneth. So it corrupteth the whole lump. This can corrupt everything. So the same thing is, all we got to do is just have a little bit of sin in us. No bigger than a grain of sand. No bigger than just a little grain of sand. A little corruption within us. It's going to throw off the whole thing. The whole entire thing. See, if we just have a little corruption within us and we mix our own standard with JEHOVAH's and we put our own fleshly desire there, it now becomes corrupted because we put in our own measure there that shouldn't be there. Because soon as we put flesh in it, we're going to reshape it into what we want it to be. That's why we spoke about the clay. That's what that was representing. Because we're going to sit there, we're going to use something weak. The flesh is weak. We're going to use something weak, and we're going to sit there, we're going to hold the flesh, and now we can reshape that. We can put our own standard, our own desire there, and put that in replacement of JEHOVAH's standard that he set for us. So guess what? That's still an abomination in the eyes of JEHOVAH, because that's a false balance. I don't care what you do or what we try to say, because now you done removed his standard that he set to fit your lifestyle. But we think, oh, it's not that serious. Yeah. Keep thinking that. See, I guarantee you, even majority of us, we won't even sit there and even go one day without feeding our flesh. We're going to sit there and eat every day. You're going to eat every day. You ain't going to sit there and let your stomach growl and get you all upset and grumpy because you hungry. But you'll go one day without feeding your spirit and devoting time to God. And that's okay. But we'll feed ourselves 7 days out the week. Sometimes even 3 times out the day. That's 21 meals a week. 21. But then I'm going to turn around and say, well, you know what? I'm only going to study. I'm only going to devote my time 4 to 5 days out the week. How the hell that work? But then we're going to say how devoted and righteous we are. Man, I'll tell you, JEHOVAH, he wakes us up every day. He's consistent. He don't change. He going to do his part for us. But we sit there and say, well, I'm going to put in work today, but tomorrow I'm going to take that day for myself. I'm going to be diligent 5 days, but then I'm going to take the last couple of days to myself to do what I want to do and please my flesh. These are unjust weights when it comes to our labor, to our diligence, to our devotion, and our time that we put in on this walk. So I'd rather please my physical needs more than my spiritual. That's what it shows. And guess what? As soon as I do that, now I'm taking that same stone, that same perfect and just weight, JEHOVAH's standard that he set. Now I'm replacing it with my own standard, with clay. Something that's soft, something that's easily changeable, that can be corrupted. Because that same clay, I can mold it and shape it into wherever I want it to be. You can't do a stone like that. That's the point. You can't do a stone like that. You can't force a stone, nor can you change it to be anything. But with the clay, I can shape it and mold it however I want to. Because now I'm taking JEHOVAH's law to fit my lifestyle. Because I'm making it fit what is sufficient for me. And what I see is sufficient in my own eyes and my own understanding. That's why I kept saying, when we sitting there and we getting into these false balances, we making everything about self. That's why I'm explaining it in this way. So we can see we making everything about self and what actually we see is right and just to us. This is what happens. Or even, let's say I sit there and say, well, you know what? When it's time for me to teach, or it's time for me to do a lesson, I'm going to go hard in my studies. But then after I teach the lesson, now I decide, you know what? I'm going to take a break. I'm going to slack off again for a few days. Because I feel I done did my part for the week. And now I go and do what I want to do. And when the day is approaching for me to teach again, and it's about time for me to put up another lesson again, now all of a sudden, I want to go hard in my studies at the last minute to prepare something so I can get that lesson up. When I had all week to prepare for it. But I chose not to do so, but decided to wait until the last minute. Then, slothfulness, laziness, procrastination, a lack of consistent devotion in my labor. But then I'm going to turn around and say, well, at least I got it done. Shoot, at least I got it done. Just because I put the lesson out, I'm still believing that is still righteousness. Thinking that it's just. Thinking I'm being just. I'm putting the completion of the lesson as that great measure. Shoot, I got that lesson done. I'm good. While my consistent devotion is still small. I'm still lazy. I still procrastinate. This is still disobedience. I got diverse weights in my bag, great and small. Again, these are abominations. Don't believe it? I'll show it to us again. We ain't got no problem with that. We can always go back to it. We go back to it. Let's go back over here to Deuteronomy chapter 25. We look back at it. Deuteronomy chapter 25, we're going to look at verse 13 and verse 14. Because he tell us. Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 13 and verse 14. Then we hit 16 because it's already highlighted. We need to see that too. Deuteronomy chapter 25, and it said, thou, you, us, shall not have in thy bag divers weights, great and small. Thou shalt not have in thy house, within thy temple, within your own body, diverse measures, great and small. Watch this. For all that do such things, everything we've been talking about, for all that do such things and all that do unrighteously are an abomination unto the Spirit of God thy God. See, this is a strict commandment. This is the standard that JEHOVAH's people must hold to and be governed by. Why? because we can even see more on this when we go over here to Proverbs. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 20. Proverbs chapter 20, let's look at something. Proverbs chapter 20 and verse 10, he tells us over here in Proverbs chapter 20 and verse 10, it says, divers weights and divers measures, both of them are alike, abomination unto the Spirit of God. See, so we see the severe consequences of violating this law. See this word right here, divers. We can see divers, it carries the spiritual function of a division. So when you're looking at this divers, it's a division, having two systems that's operating simultaneously. We've been talking about it. One for what you receive and one for what you give. That great and that small. But they don't line up. That's the catch. They don't line up. We sitting there, we doing one thing, but then we want to receive another thing. We ain't putting in no work, but then we want to receive something. You can't do that. You can't do this. These are two different weights because they're diverse. They're not equal. So it's going to throw the balance off. See, the great measure is the spiritual blessings that we demand to receive. Even saying that we diligent, that we devoted, and that we dedicated. That's what we want to receive. But then we sit there and turn around and put in a small measure, a small ephah, which shows our laziness, our procrastination, and our slothfulness, giving small labor or lack of devotion. That's what we give. See, these are diverse weights. It's not equal in measure. That's the issue. But we'll do it. Guess what? We don't think nothing about it. But JEHOVAH declaring it to us what it is. We jump down to verse 23 in the same chapter, in Proverbs chapter 20 and verse 23, and it says, divers weights are an abomination unto the Spirit of God, and a false balance is not good. So again, here, this term abomination, this is most hated, is loathsome, is lewd. So in the law, this term, it carries the function that this right here is 100% incompatible with JEHOVAH's nature. Because JEHOVAH is 100% against it. It's an abomination to him. So this is not something that he just disapproves of. Like this is just something that's just bad and it's just not good. It's not that. See that waters it down. See, well, he just don't like it. No. We're not going to water this down. But this way right here, having these unjust weights, this is an abomination. This is most hated. God hates this. This cannot exist in his presence without actually provoking a response from him. See, that's where we're going to have the problem. That's where we're going to have the issue. Because he even tell us in Jeremiah. Let's see something. In Jeremiah chapter 5 and verse 9, he tell us something. Jeremiah chapter 5 verse 9, he said, shall I not visit for these things? Says the Spirit of God. And shall not my soul be avenged on such a nation as this, as such as people as this? See, if we don't want to hold to his standard that he established, but we want to continue to remove things to fit our lifestyle, you don't think he's going to visit for these things? You don't think he's going to have a problem with us? You don't think it's going to happen? Because the same thing is, let's go over here. Let's look at something here. Because we go over here, let's look at Romans chapter 8. Let's see something. In Romans chapter 8, verse 7 and verse 8, he tells us something. It says, because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it's not subject to the law of God, neither indeed in works can be. So then, they that are in the flesh cannot please God. So this flesh isn't subject to JEHOVAH's law. It can't be, and it never will be. So if we operate in flesh, then we'll never please God. We'll never hold to his standard, not flesh, because it's always going to do something to try to change it, to make it fit us, to make it fit our desires. That's what it's going to do, because it's contrary to the Spirit. That's why he tells us in Galatians chapter 5. That's why he tells us this here in Galatians chapter 5 and verse 17. That's why he tells us. Galatians chapter 5 and verse 17. It said, for the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary one to the other, so that you cannot do the things that you would. So it's impossible to do both. But we try to sit there and do it. We try to equal the clay, our own measure, with the stone, Jehovah's measure. But these two ain't the same. They contrary. They don't hold the same weight. They don't have the same measure. They're not equal. They're diverse. It's going to contradict itself. That's why Yhovah sets a standard for his people to govern them and for them to abide by, because Jehovah's law is spiritual. So flesh cannot operate in his law. So flesh can't meet the standard that Jehovah set. So anybody operating in the flesh cannot please God, because you can't meet his standards that he set according to his law, because his law is spiritual and flesh can't operate in that. That's the point. Because it's going to be against it no matter what. Just as the flesh is contrary to the spirit, because as soon as you put your flesh there, it's going to knock it right out of balance. You're going to have a false balance and an unjust weight, just like that. As soon as you put your flesh there, as soon as you put your own desires in there, it's always going to be an unjust weight. It's always going to be a false balance. Always. By placing our own standard, by placing our own measure that we come up with. We place that. We put that in the very position that belongs to Jehovah's law alone. This is what we do. This is what we do. So, this unjust weight. See, when you strip it down, so we've just been stripping it down. When you strip it down even more for what it is, we can see. When you strip it down, you see it for what it is, we can see that it's pride. That's what it is. It's pride. Because now I'm saying my measure is sufficient. And my standard, what I hold to, is good enough. I don't require the full standard of the Most High. What for? I got everything I need. I'm good. Like Elder Martin said, I'm good. I've done enough. What more do I need? I have no need of thee. That's interesting. That is highly interesting. We see something over here in Sirach. In Sirach chapter 5, he tells us. In Sirach chapter 5 and verse 1, he even tells us here. He said, set not thy heart. Remember, that heart is deceitful. Remember. So set not thy heart upon thy goods, and say not, I have enough for my life. But guess what? My measure is sufficient. I'm good. I got everything that I need. What else do I need? I work hard enough. Look at what I've achieved. Look at what I've achieved. Look at how I prospered. I work hard enough, Lord. Give me my reward. I put in enough work. I've done enough. See, now I done reached a certain height. I done got to a certain level in my understanding. Now all of a suddenly, I think I'm untouchable. I'm the man. I'm that guy. I'm that dude now. See, this is exactly the mindset of those that feel like we done enough. We don't have no need of anything. We get to a certain level in our understanding. Now we believe we don't reach the pinnacle of knowledge. Now we know everything. But who told you that you meet Jehovah's standards? Who told you that? And who told you what his measuring stick is? Who told you that? Who told you that you met the mark? Who told you? He tells us something. We go over here to 1 Corinthians. In 1 Corinthians chapter 8. 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and verse 2, he tells us something. It says, and if, providing any man, any male or female, thinketh that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing yet as he ought to know. But we'll think we know everything. See, this is what pride does. We'll get to a certain level. Now, we think we the best thing walking around. You can't tell us nothing. We learn just enough, believing that we know something when we really don't know nothing. See, what we should be learning something new every day. See, a man of understanding knows that the more he increases, the more he should humble himself. The more humble he should become. The more knowledge he receives, he should understand that he always can go deeper. But once we get to a certain point and think that we've achieved everything on where we need to be, now you done deceived yourself into thinking that you something that you really not. Same thing he even tells us in Galatians. We see over here in Galatians chapter 6 and verse 3, he tells us, for if, providing a male or female thinking himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself. That's why I say, this is what flesh do. Once we don't remove, we're going to remove JEHOVAH's standard. See, all he tells, hey, we study to show ourselves approved. We put it in work daily. Okay, we going to remove all that. We take all that out of the way. No, we gonna put our own standard. Lord, I done did enough, Lord. Once we put flesh in it, now it's gonna corrupt the balance. Because a lot of time, like I said, we get to a certain point. Once we get puffed up in knowledge and understanding, now we'll sit there and think that we more than what we really are. See, just like the saying goes, when you sit there, you give a black man an inch, he gonna take a mile. He can't say it's a lie because you see it every day. You see it every day. All you got to sit there and do is give him a little power. Give him a little power and he feel like he has a little authority and it makes him feel as though he's something when he's nothing. He ain't nothing but flesh. Now he feels as though he's untouchable. Can't nothing happen to him. I'm somebody now. You can't tell me nothing. I can't be touched. See, this is what happens when we allow knowledge to go to our heads. Even when we allow positions and titles that we hold to go to our head. Now we think we more than what we actually are. But who we fooling? Who you fooling? Who we think we fooling? We ain't fooling God. You ain't fooling Satan. He the one getting us caught up. See, Satan, he even exposed us even for our own deception. We even see this over here in Job. In Job chapter 2. In Job chapter 2, we'll look at verse 4 and verse 5. Job chapter 2, verse 4 and verse 5. And it said, and Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin. Yea, all that a man have, will he give for his life. Oh, best believe we going to do that. We going to save our own life. See, we'll save our own skin in a heartbeat. We good at this. We'll lie, we'll manipulate, and we'll deceive to save our own skin. But then we're going to turn around and act like we so righteous. But then we're going to justify ourselves and give our own reason on why we do what we do. This is what we do. He tells us in verse 5, but put forth thine hand now and touch his bone and his flesh. Touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. Exactly the point. See, a lot of us going to actually do this. We'll do it. We say we won't, but as soon as we get put through something harsh and we get put through some hell, we're going to sit right there and we'll curse God right to his face. And we say we won't do it. But as soon as that happens, the very thing that we say we won't do is the very thing that we'll turn around and do. But then we'll put our own transgressions back on JEHOVAH as if it was his fault that we did wickedly, when it was our own dang fault. He told us this. When we go over here, let's look at this. Let's go over here to Sirach or Ecclesiasticus. Ecclesiasticus chapter 15. We're going to see something. Let's go to Sirach. Ecclesiasticus. Sirach. Ecclesiasticus chapter 15. We're going to hit verse 11 down to verse 13. And it says, say not thou, it is through the Lord that I fell away. Don't you say that. Don't you say that. For you ought not to do the things that he hateth. Don't say it's through the Lord that you fell away. It's your own fault. Say not thou, he have caused me to err, for he have no need of a sinful man. He ain't got no need for nobody like this. The Lord hateth all abomination. Yeah, these false balances that we like to put in. These diverse weights, saying we one thing and then we doing another thing, being straight up hypocrites. Yeah, exactly the point. But he said, and they that fear, they that desire God, love it not. They desire God, they promise it not. They don't hold to that. See, if we sitting there saying how devoted, how dedicated, how just, and how upright we are, and we professing our righteousness, and we sitting there, we proclaiming it to others what's right. But then we turn around and do the same wicked things that we speak against. That's contrary to God. But then we're going to say how much we fear God. And then we'll turn right around and do the same thing that's contrary to him. That's against the standard that he set for his people. We're going to preach it, but we ain't going to hold to it. But we're going to claim to hold to it. So then again, whose fault is that? Who's false? Is that not an unjust weight? Is that not a false balance and an abomination to Jehovah? So who are you going to blame now? Who's going to justify our actions for us? Because again, our issue is, we think that this can't happen. We think that this can't happen to us. Not to us. Shoot, not to me. This can't happen to me. No, I'm that guy. I'm that dude. I'm just, I'm right. I can't fall to this. This can't happen to me. See, we sit there and believe just because we get to a certain level in understanding and we get put in certain positions, even having titles and rank, as soon as we get put on a pedestal, well, the pedestal that we placed ourselves on. But anyways, now we think we too good. Now we think we too daggone good that we can't fall. Now we think we untouchable. Can't nothing happen to me. Just like he said, hast thou considered my servant Job? Which we know Job not a real person. So guess what? We got to put our own names there. He tell you, he fear of God. Ain't no man like him. Right here in Job chapter 1 verse 8. Spirit God said to say, hast thou considered my servant Job? Hast thou considered my servant Ernest? Have you considered him? That there is none like him in the earth. A perfect and upright man. One that feareth God and escheweth evil. But that's the issue. So we have to ask ourselves, just like I have to examine my own self. Is this true? Is this a fact? Or was this a false appearance of righteousness that I put in? Because the same thing is, he tell us over here when we go over here to chapter 32. He said, same thing, because we do this telling you about us. That's what I say. They're telling you exactly what we do. So these three men ceased to answer Job because he was righteous in his own eyes. Everything he doing is righteous. He don't see it's wrong. See, this is what gets us. We put on an outward appearance of righteousness, but on the inward parts from within, it's a whole different story. We'll appear righteous before God all day, every day. But as soon as the heat turns up on us, as soon as we get stripped of everything that we had in our own glory, then that's where you find out what's real and what's fake. That's where you're going to find out what's true and what's false. That's where it's going to prove if you're going to hold to everything that you said that was true. That's going to prove if you're going to have that just weight or you're going to have that false balance. That's where that's going to get proven. Because like I said, the stone don't change. It is what it is. It can be a just stone, but guess what? It also can be revealed as a false one. It doesn't matter what we try to put there, but as soon as we get put through something, that's where it's going to reveal what it is and who we really are. Are we really just and upright, or was it a false balance all along? Was it full of deceit? See, this is what happens to us when we get puffed up in our pride. Job chapter 2, verse 6. Job chapter 2 and verse 6. And the Spirit of God said unto Satan, behold, remember, he is in thy hand, but save his life. Yeah, you can't kill him. You can't take his life because you ain't got the power to do that. You don't hold that power, but put him through some hell. Then you will see what he really about. He tell us something in verse 9. It said, then his wife said his wife unto him, doest thou still retain thy integrity? Do you still retain your uprightness? Do you still retain your righteousness? Your equity? Your faithfulness? Your honesty? Do you still retain it? Or was that all a lie? Was you just putting on the act, bro? Curse God. Curse God and die. Be separated from God. Separate yourself. See, this wife is this woman, which we can even see spiritually represent a spirit. So this is going to tie you to our consciousness, our mind, our heart, our inward desire. That's why I say our own heart is deceitful. It's wicked because our own mind, if we listen to it, we listen to what's in our own mind, the mind of flesh within our own spirit. And we know if it ain't aligned with God, just like the same thing that happened in the garden. Have you hearkened unto the voice of thy wife? We sitting there listening to our own counsel of our own thoughts. Then first thing we're gonna end up following something else that's completely contrary to Jehovah. Because we thought it was right. Oh yeah, you know what? I'm gonna do that because I think that's right. It seemed right to me. Yeah, go ahead. So we sit there and we don't hearken to Jehovah's spirit, then we gonna follow another spirit. Then that way that we following is gonna deceive us. But then we gonna sit there and justify ourselves. But he tell us something right here in verse 7. See what happened? It said, so Satan went forth from the presence of the Spirit of God and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot, so from the sole of his desire unto his crown, unto his honor and his glory. So these sore boils are these sicknesses, these diseases, these infirmities, these weaknesses of our flesh. This sin from our desires to our crown, to our own glory, to our own honor. He'll strip us down. See, it reveals our sin for what it really is. But our issue is even in that. Even when we get stripped down and revealed for what we really are. Even in that, even in all of that, we'll still be prideful about it. We'll still be prideful. We'll still sit right there and believe that we good. I'm say, this ain't nothing to play. We still gonna sit right there and believe that we good. When he tell us back over here in Sirach chapter 5, verse 1 down to verse 4, it said, set not thine heart upon thy goods, and say not, I have enough for my life. Follow not thy own mind and thy own strength to walk in the ways of thy heart. Because again, we follow our own heart, our own flesh of the desire. That's what's going to get us in trouble. And say not, who shall control me for my works? For the Lord, the Creator, will surely revenge thy pride. Say not, I have sinned, and what harm have happened unto me? For the Lord is long-suffering. He will in no wise let thee go. He ain't going to let us go. Just because nothing ain't happened yet, we think we good. Okay, believe that. He ain't going to let us go. He ain't going to let you slip through the cracks. Because again, the Most High, he set that standard from the beginning. A just and perfect measure we must have. We can't have diverse weights. We can't be saying one thing and then we turn around and we hold into another whole different, completely different thing. We can't be operating like that. Because if we do, we're going to have a problem. And again, he ain't going to let us go. He gonna hold us to the fire. So get what? It don't matter what we do. It don't matter what we say. It don't matter what we think and what we believe. Even in justifying ourselves in our own actions, none of that matter. Because when you stand before his throne, when you stand before his judgment seat, it don't matter what you thought. It don't matter what you believe. He gonna measure every soul based on his judgment, not ours, but based on his doctrines and teachings that he set in place. His standards, not ours. He ain't going to negotiate with us. He ain't going to change nothing for us. So if we stand before God and we coming we coming with these false balances. See, if we saying we holding to God while at the same time violating those same very doctrines and teachings that we say we holding to, that we supposed to be holding to, guess what? He ain't going to hear our excuses. He ain't going to hear our reasoning. He ain't going to listen to our justification. Jehovah's measure is based on his standard, not ours. Just as that stone again is unmovable. It's unchangeable. That's why I keep going back to the dang stone so we can see it. He ain't going to change it for us. It don't alter. You can't break it. It's the perfect standard of measurement. So when it comes to Jehovah's law, it's the same exact way. It don't change for you. It don't change for me. It don't change for nobody. It is what it is. So if we don't live by it, if we don't hold to it, it don't matter what you try to do to make it fit you. He's still gonna hold us to the same set of commandments and instructions that he set in place. He's gonna hold us to the same judgment and the same standard that he set, not what we try to sit there and make it to be. That's the point. So we can sit there all day, every day and say, well, shoot, I just don't see it that way. I'm not seeing that way. Hell, okay, it don't matter how you see it. He don't care how you say how you see it. We either going to hold to Jehovah's standard that he set in place according to his law, or we don't. Regardless, the outcome is still going to be the same. We're going to receive our just recompense, good or bad, based on our works. Proven us, rather we held to his law or no. So again, it goes back even to the original point I was even making. We sit there thinking that we good. We say, I have enough for my life. See, even when this statement right here, even this here, I have enough of my life. Even that statement within itself. See, when you say I have enough of my life and I have no need of anything. See, this right here, this ain't no different from anyone that choose not to ask questions on anything. You saying the same thing. I have enough of my life. Even asking questions that even concerneth your own soul, that concerneth your own salvation. Matter of fact, I even show us, he even give us wisdom on this very thing. He tell us this in Sirach. In Sirach chapter 4. In Sirach chapter 4, we look at Sirach chapter 4 and verse 20. He tell us something here. Sirach or Ecclesiasticus chapter 4 and verse 20. It says, observe the opportunity and beware of evil, and be not ashamed when it concerneth thy soul. So why in the world would you be ashamed to receive what we need for our souls? Well, I don't want to say nothing in front of nobody. Okay, he already see you for what you are. So what you ashamed for? This is why we always say our very lives are on the line. See, that ain't no catchphrase that we just throw around. That's serious. We shouldn't be ashamed to ask anything, especially when it concerneth our soul. But when we sit there, but when we like that, when we choose not to, when we choose to sit on things, this is exactly what you're saying. I have enough for my life. Because that's your standard. That's your measure. But again, that's pride. But again, we don't know what Jehovah's measuring stick is. But pride will make us sit there and now we believe we can determine that for ourselves. But this is the same reason why majority of us here, we lack so much understanding in what we should know. Not because we can't know it, but we don't seek to know it. It is what it is. It is what it is. Because he tell us over here, let's look at it. In Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6, he tell us, it says, my people, his people, he said, are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Because thou, meaning us, me, we destroyed for a lack of knowledge because we have rejected knowledge. He said, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. We forgot his standard. We forgot his statutes. We forgot his judgments. We forgot about all of that because we too busy establishing our own. But guess what? He said, I will also forget thy children. I'm going to forget your works. He going to forget our works too. We forget him. Okay. He going to forget our work. He going to meet us with that same thing. See, that's where we got a problem. See, this here does not just apply to those who are not in the truth, who rejects Jehovah's word, but this same thing applies to us right now. When we choose not to ask questions and seek understanding, especially when it concerneth our soul and our own salvation. See, when we choose not to, we actually rejecting knowledge. But then we will still want to receive the blessing. Again, we putting in a small Yhovah. We choose to sit back and do nothing. But then we want the great shekel. We still want the spiritual blessings of knowledge and understanding. But we don't do nothing to receive it. We keep our mouth closed, but then we want understanding. Make it make sense. But we refusing it. We disallowing it. We choosing not to receive it. So now we picking and choosing what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. Why? Because we holding to our own measure instead of Jehovah's doctrines and teaching. Because we sit there and feel as though we got enough for our life. We don't need no more understanding. We don't need no clarification. We don't need to ask for help. We don't need to ask for guidance. We got enough. We good. We know enough already. But then we'll try to sit there and say, well, I just don't want to seem like I'm stupid or anything, that I don't know nothing. Or we sit there and say, well, I just got anxiety. I be nervous. So I'm just not going to say nothing. Yeah, because we're going to reason within our own selves. And that's still pride. But we're going to deceive ourselves into thinking what we're doing is right. You know what's going to happen? He going to depart from us. He going to forget our works. Because for whatever reason, we think that Jehovah just going to be patient with us forever. I don't know why we think that. For some reason, we think that. We think his long-suffering with us is just going to be forever with us. Like he just going to sit there forever. When he even tell us back over here in Sirach chapter 5, verse 7, he warns us of this. He said, make no tarrying. Don't you sit there and wait around. Make no tarrying to turn unto the Lord, to turn unto the Creator, and put not off day to day. Well, you know what? I'll do it tomorrow. Okay, go ahead. Do it tomorrow. For suddenly shall the wrath of the Lord come forth, and in thy security, so in your own comfort, in your own peace, thou shalt be destroyed and perish in the day of vengeance. This is what I said. His long suffering, we sitting there, it ain't going to be forever. But our issue is we sit there and we try to take advantage of that. See, Jehovah, he gives us a certain amount of time to get it right. But then when that time is up, it's up. It ain't going to be no changing it. It ain't no going back. And now you want to go back and now you want to do something differently. See, once our time is up, it's up. That's why he said he ain't going to strive with flesh. He ain't going to always strive with flesh. He ain't going to put up with our crap forever. Once he done with you, he done with you. But then we think we good. We still think we good. We even tell us when we go over here to Revelation. Because I have enough. I have enough of my life. He tells us in Revelation chapter 3. He tells us right here in Revelation chapter 3 and verse 16, it says, so then, because thou art in your perfection and beauty, lukewarm. We lukewarm. We being half-hearted. You like to play on both sides of the fence. You like to set your own standards and reshape it to fit your own interests and hold to what you want to hold to. That's what we do. And neither cold nor hot. He said, I will spew thee out of my mouth. That's what I said. He ain't going to keep dealing with us like we think. That's what I said. He ain't going to keep putting up with our crap. Because he flat out telling us right here. When you look at verse 15, he telling us about ourselves. He tell us right here in verse 15, he said, I know thy works. He know our works. He know what we about. He know what we doing. He know what we into. He said that thou art in your perfection and beauty, neither cold nor hot. I would that thou were cold or hot. Meaning, we're going to be the one or the other. You ain't coming two different ways. So the thing is, we either going to be cold or we going to be hot. So if we're going to be cold, then we ain't got a thing to do with God. You all the way on the left side of the plumb line. So he rather you be cold. So if you're going to be cold, then stay over there. Meaning you be separated from him and go out in the world and live your life to the fullest. Do whatever you want to do. Don't even try to act like you're going to hold to his way. Don't even waste your time to try to pretend and try to put on the act. Stop it. Because we ain't going to hold to the standard that he set in his statutes anyways. So why you sitting there putting on the act for? If you're going to be cold, be cold. So ain't no reason to waste our time. Or we going to be hot. Meaning you're going to have that fervent desire. So you ain't going to alter. You ain't going to change it. You're going to hold to those statutes and those judgments. All his statutes and all his judgments that are set by Jehovah. Because that's truly your desire. So your actions follow it. And it's going to be just. It's going to be balanced. It's going to be without compromise. It ain't going to bend. It's going to be unmovable. It ain't going to be no deceit or any hypocrisy there. But it's going to be pure devotion, dedication, and worship. But again, our issue is we want to play in between. We want to be lukewarm. We think we can mix Jehovah's ways with our ways and think that that is going to be sufficient when it's not. Don't you know being lukewarm, sitting there trying to be lukewarm is worse than being cold? You might as well be out there, ain't had nothing to do with God and sitting here trying to pretend and being a hypocrite. Pretending to be a true follower of Christ, pretending to be righteous, pretending to be a servant of God, while at the same time you holding to your own standards and pleasing your flesh. That's an unjust weight. That ain't cool. See, it'd been better if you didn't even know what the truth was than to sit there and turn around and not really hold to it. That's why I even tell you over here in 2 Peter. 2 Peter chapter 2, let's look at this. 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 21. 2 Peter chapter 2. 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 21. And it said, for it had been better for them to not have known the way of righteousness. So I said, it been better that you was cold. It been better that you was over there. Then, after they have known it, to turn from the holy commandment. So to turn from that separated commandment, that statute, that law, that ordinance, which we was commanded, which we seen, to have a perfect and just way. So it been better that you ain't even known the way of righteousness than to sit there. He told us according to the law, we got to have a perfect and just measure, but you sit there and turn from it and you sit there and you doing unrighteousness. It been better if you ain't even know it at all, because now you can't say that you don't know. So he going to hold you to it. But that's what happens when we get the truth and we learn the ways of Jehovah, but then we still want to turn around and do things our own way. We have Jehovah's law. We have his instructions. We have his commandments. We have his statutes and his judgments in our hand. And instead of holding to that which is set, we remove it and we want to sit there and bring our own crap in and reshape it to serve our own interests. And we're going to follow what we want to follow and then believe that we still doing right. And we're going to hold to whatever we want to hold to. Like I said, the same ones. Those of us that sit there and believe and sit there and say, well, you know what? I'm going to keep my mouth shut and I ain't going to say nothing. There you go. And I ain't going to seek no answers and I ain't going to seek no clarification and I ain't going to seek out what I need to understand for my salvation. And we think we can just show up and just sit here and just tune in and then we go about our business and think we good. Guess what? You deceiving yourself by your own heart because you setting your own standard because that's what you believe. It ain't Jehovah's standard. Because throughout scripture, we can't even see it. If we want to understand it, we got to seek it out. That's why he tell you, ask and you shall receive. But we said, nope. I ain't going to hold to that. I'll be good. I'm good. I'll be okay. But again, he tell us back over here, you see how we say one thing and then the scripture, matter of fact, I want to show the scripture because matter of fact, let me show the scripture. Even what I had said, I want to show that scripture because I want us to see, because I don't want to just state it and then I didn't actually show that. I want, because I don't know, you can have somebody that might try to pretend that it's not there. And you're going to see right here, it says in Matthew chapter 7, verse 7 and 8, it said, ask, and it should be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh, and it should be open. But we think somebody just supposed to, we think we just supposed to lay back and somebody supposed to feed us some grapes. But then we gonna want understanding, but don't seek the understanding. That's why I say. This is why we gonna have a problem. Because a lot of us, we don't like to do this. We do not like to do this. Same thing is, closed mouths don't get fed. You know that statement used to just irk me because that was exactly what I was doing. I used to come in here and think I could just sit back, get the understanding, and go about my business and just, I ain't got to. When I used to hear closed mouths don't get fed, I'd just be like, I can't stand it. But that's because it was pricking me in my heart, letting me know that's what I got a problem with. I don't want to act, but that's being prideful. But then I still believe that I'm being devoted to God, but I'm not willing to ask to receive understanding. That's an unjust way. That's a false balance. You can't sit, because I'm sitting there, I want understanding, I desire understanding, but I'm not willing to take the necessary steps to ask to receive it. That don't work. That's what I'm saying. That's why I say we're going to have these things that we think is small, that they just little minor infractions. They not minor things. These are huge issues in our walk. Main thing is, he tells us right here in Revelation chapter 3, in verse 17, because it reveals what we really are. It says, because thou sayest, we sayest, I am rich. We say that. Put your name there. We say, Ernest say, he is rich and increase with good and have need of nothing. I got understanding. I'm rich in knowledge. I'm increased in my substance. I know what the scriptures say. I do my studies. I take the notes. I know what's going on. I'm good. I understood the teaching. I don't need to ask for no more guidance. I don't need to ask for no help. I don't need to see how I can go deeper in this understanding. I got enough for my life. I'm sufficient now. Yeah, that's exactly what we do. And guess what? And know it's not that thou art in my perfection and beauty, wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. Exactly the point. That's what we don't want to see. See, the great measure. So this is what we put right here. I'm rich and increased with goods and have enough for me to nothing. But that small measure that we want, we don't want to see this, that we wretched, that we miserable, that we lack understanding, that we naked. We don't want to see it. So we get blinded. We can get blinded by our own self-righteousness to the point where we can't even see our own spiritual condition that is going on within us. We can't even see it. Can't see the forest for the trees. But we can see everybody else, though. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. See, that's where the party starts. See, that's what I say. We're going to get into that, which actually on next week, we got to get into that a lot because, I got to keep going. But the point is, this is a spiritual transgression. Believing that one's own measure, the standard that we set for ourselves is sufficient and we are not required to hold to Jehovah's full standard that he set in place according to his law. So the thing is, again, when actually looking underneath all of that, like I said, when we stripped all of that down, it ain't nothing but pride. And guess what? A pride is an abomination with the Yhovah. It's an abomination to God. That's pride that's within us. That's what it reveals. But guess what? Let me show you. When that happens, he tells us right here in Sirach chapter 10, verse 12, this is where it happened, right here. It happened right here. The beginning of pride is when one departed from God. Exactly the point. And his heart, that deceitful heart that we got, is turned away from his maker. Exactly the point. This is where that substitution happens, right there. When we replace Jehovah's measure and that just and perfect weight, that stone, with our own measure, with our own standard on what we see is right in our own eyes. We do it right there because of our pride. That's why I made that statement from the beginning of this teaching. These unjust weights is something that It's all about self. We make everything about self because we make everything about ourselves. When we start having these unjust weights and these false balances, because we're going to make everything about us on what we see is right. And it's due to our own pride of our own wicked hearts. Because we're going to believe that our own measure, our own standard that we set for ourselves is sufficient. When he even tell us something in Ezekiel and show us this. He tell us in Ezekiel chapter 18. In Ezekiel chapter 18 and verse 24. Tell me, is this acceptable? He said, but when the righteous turneth away from his righteousness and committeth iniquity. So when you sit there, you start being righteous, you do what's right, but then you turn around and then you do contrary. What happened? And doeth according to all the abominations that the wicked man doeth. Shall he live? Shall ye live? All his righteousness that he have done should not be mentioned. He ain't gonna mention not a dab, slab, nothing of it. It don't matter what you did. Well, Lord, you remember when I did this? Lord, you remember when I did this? No, he don't care. Because the thing is, you don't turn away from all that, and now you don't put in this false balance. In his trespass that he trespassed, and in the sin that he have sinned, in them shall he die. You're going to be separated from God. But watch this. What we say, here we go. Let's put our little 2 cents in. Here we go. Yeah. You say, here go our justification. The way of the Lord is not equal. Ooh. Hear now, O house of Israel, is not my way equal? And are not your ways unequal? We try to put it back on God, and it's us. This is an unjust balance. It's a false balance because righteousness equals being balanced and being in harmony with Jehovah's ways, having a perfect and just measure. So to be doing righteousness is to be living upright, not just in speech, but our actions should follow it. Our actions should align with our speech. Whatever we speaking on, our actions, our behavior, and our conduct has to equal that. But our way is unequal. It's just like somebody that's walking and then their equilibrium goes up. You sit there, you might stumble, you might fall. Yeah, because it's something wrong. It's something within your body that's not right. But that's the same thing spiritually. We're on our walk, on our journey. When something within us ain't right, then something is off. Now we off balance because we doing something that we shouldn't be doing. But if we doing righteousness, then everything going to line up because it's showing equity in Jehovah's ways. It's showing that we equal, that we being aligned with his standard that he set. But then to turn away from that, after you don't start walking righteously, and now you turn away from that. That's where we had a problem. See, that shows that our way is not equal. Now it's diverse. Now we live in 2 different ways, like we live in a double life now. That is an abomination to Yhovah. That's why I say, because that is not a pure and honest lifestyle. To walk righteously and to turn around and turn away from living according to Jehovah's way. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. But we do it though. We'll do it. Because we already seen that these false balances and abominations, this is most hated in the eyes of Jehovah. When we sit there and turn away from doing what's right and what's just to doing what we deem is right in our own eyes. See, we'll give small devotion, but then seeking a great reward for our own gain. We ain't did nothing. That's hypocrisy. See, even consider the Sabbath day, the holy day of rest. See, we'll even be more occupied in getting our own gain rather than being occupied in Jehovah's rest. See, we can even see this when we go back over here to Amos. Let's look at it. He tells us, we can see this in Amos chapter 8 and verse 5. This clearly identifies the same spirit of this unjust weight here. Now we read the whole verse. Amos chapter 8 verse 5, it says, saying, when will the new moon be gone that we may sell corn? And the Sabbath that we may set forth wheat? Making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit. We looked at this part earlier. That ephah is that measure that we're going to use to give, and that shekel is that measure used to demand. So, the given measure, this ephah, is made small, and the remaining measure is the shekel. that's made great. These ways are not equal. That's why he said, are not your ways unequal? He telling us, he's showing us exactly our transgression. So this man, in this very transgression, he reduces the labor of what he puts out, of what he gives, but increases the demand of what he receives and seeks to gain. You see what they're saying? When the new moon gonna be gone, we can sell corn. And the Sabbath that we can set for a week. They can't wait for the Sabbath to end so they can go and do this. So they can continue to resume this practice and this wicked lifestyle. See, this ain't no different from what we do. We'll sit there, we'll come on the Sabbath day, and we'll attend the classes on the Sabbath just to be there, but then we don't put in no labor. We don't meditate. We don't like to ask the questions, but we just be there just to be there, just to say that we was in attendance. And then when it's over, we go right back to the same thing that we was doing before it even started. We can't wait till the Sabbath is over so we can go and occupy our own pleasures for our own gain. Sitting there, when the Sabbath going to be over? Sitting there checking the clock. Is it 6 o'clock yet? It's 7 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock and we still in the Zoom. I got stuff that I got to do. We in class too long. I got things I got to do. See, these are diverse weights, unjust weights, sitting there putting in little towards God, but then seeking great gain for our own advantage. See, these are the things that we do. These are the things that we do. See, this is the thing. So, you go back to the same thing he tell us. We can't have this. We cannot have this. Back over here in Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 13. Verse 13. Verse 13 down to 16. Read it again. Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 13 down to 16. He tell us, it said, thou shalt not have in thy bag divers weights, great and small. Thou shalt not have in thy house divers measures, great and small, but thou shalt have a perfect and just weight. A perfect and just measure shalt thou have, and thy days may be lengthened in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. For all that do such things, and all that are do unrighteously, an abomination unto the Spirit of God thy God. So we can't have this in our bag. We cannot conduct ourselves in this way, because the standard must be the same, just as the stone. It must be unchanging. It must be unwavering. It must be unmovable and equal in every spiritual transaction. So even in our speech and our actions must align. So the same thing is, if we saying something that we professing, the same thing we got to be holding to. It has to be equal, providing we seeking spiritual blessings, then our devotion, our dedication, our willingness and commitment to service must match it and being equal in weight. That's the only way there's going to be a just balance. But even the issue with this, we can see right here in verse 16, again, he tells us, well, when we do unrighteously, he tell you, for all that do such things and all that do unrighteously are an abomination to the Spirit of God thy God. So this very statute here, again, this does not just merely name the transgressor who does unrighteously. It's not that. It don't merely just name the one who did the offense. However, it assigns him this identity before Yhovah, this abomination. This abomination. See, this abomination in the law carries the function of something that has crossed into the territory of an irreversible response from Yhovah. That's why I say it's so serious. That's why I say that this is so serious. See, and we're going to have a problem with this. We're going to have a problem with this. The same thing is, he tells, it says, a false balance is an abomination unto the Spirit of God, but a just weight is his delight. So the same Yhovah who said a just weight is his delight, right here is the same one who said a false balance is an abomination. So he establishes both ends of the measure. See, these are established principles. This is Yhovah's unchanging standard that he holds every man, every woman, every soul to the same exact measure and standard. So what is true and what is false will be revealed for what it is. That is what we have to understand. That this is what we have to understand, and this is what we have to grow through. So even it's something that I want us to consider, and it's something that I want us to even meditate on as we wind down this teaching. I want us to meditate on this dark speech, which we actually going to be getting into on next week, which this dark speech was not something that I wrote, but it was provided to me by our elder and our pastor here. But I want to read this to us to give us something to meditate on. But then next week, we actually going to go into it. So it says, the stone does not apologize for its weight, and neither does the law of Yhovah apologize for its measure. A man may switch stones in the dark, but in the land of Havilah, while all things are refined and proven in the fire of Yhovah searching, the false stone reveals itself for what it is: light, hollow, and unable to hold a standard. What the onyx stone records before the face of Yhovah is not what a man claimed to measure, but what the balance showed when no eyes but his were watching. So this is what I want us to consider as we continue to move forward. He tells us something in Luke chapter 12 and verse 2. It said, "For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known." Let's go over here to 1 Corinthians. No, actually, 2 Corinthians chapter 13. 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 5. Tell us something. It's what we always do. It says, "Examine yourselves, whether ye be in the faith, and prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how that Jesus Christ, or the salvation of Yhovah, is in you, except ye be reprobates?" Is it? Is this true? Is this something true that we can say about ourselves? Because the same thing is, one thing that we have to keep in mind. He tells us in 2 Corinthians 5 verse 10, it said, "For we all must appear in the presence of the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body, according to that he have done, whether it be good or bad." So this is going to happen. This is going to happen, whether we like it or not, based on what we choose to hold to. See, we either going to have a perfect and just measure, or we're going to have diverse weights. So are we going to continue to put on these false appearances of righteousness outwardly, but then inwardly, in secret, it's a whole different thing, and it's revealed to be something else? So what we got to do, we must come clean and truly examine ourselves now, while the opportunity is actually present. Because everything that we do is recorded, good and bad. So again, these unjust weights, these are not something for us to play around with. But we truly need to look within ourselves and truly see what's really there. And then whatever issues are there, we have to truly empty ourselves of it, so then we can be filled with what's just and what's righteous in the eyes of Yhovah. That's what we want to do. But like I said, we're going to stop the teaching right here, because there's a lot that's to this, and there's a lot that goes into this lesson. But, like I said, we're going to pick this up on next week, and we're going to go deeper so we can gain a deeper understanding of what's actually going on and what we need to know and what we need to understand. So with that, I like to appreciate everyone for coming out and tuning in to this lesson. And hopefully we receive some edification as we move forward. So with that, appreciate you guys for coming out and tuning in. This was Evangelist James with the King James Bible University. And I would like to say, Shalom.